Over the course of the semester, we visited Daegu in South Korea to understand production urbanism and its role in creating sustainable cities. Our proposition named Transformer City focuses on typological diversity, bottom-up thinking, and architectural collaboration to equip existing buildings with upgradable systems, compress and amalgamate living and working conditions, and facilitate the city's demands. We were posed the question, what if everything consumed in Daegu was made in Daegu? We identified 3 obstacles we needed to address with the city's current culture and behavior. First, a single-use consumption mindset. Second, monotony in architecture produced. And third, infrastructure that's selfish and unproductive. The first obstacle was reframing the lens in which we see buildings and their value over time. We designed buildings that are built, used, and forgotten when no longer needed. But what if we could have buildings that can continue on and be adapted to fulfill the ever-changing needs of the people? Next was promoting collaboration and diverse authorship in architecture. Currently, the regulatory systems in place manufacture copy and pasted versions of sameness. Yet why can't we have buildings that both stand out aesthetically and functionally to what we've always done? Lastly, the city is increasingly struggling to support itself with the energy and manufacturing infrastructure that can be multifunctional over 24 hours a day and serve both the public and private realms.
Our response to the obstacles became our shared values that govern the proposition. As a team of 3, we also agreed upon a set of foundational methods to base our design process for each of us to individually depart from. This encouraged a collaborative environment whilst promoting and celebrating variety in our differing design identities. The shared methods were designing diversity from the existing through identifying and implementing new building components to be accessorized or replaced for space creation, reusing systems to update and upgrade a space's purpose once invention and innovation of processes occur, and framing productiveness across a range of scales. We looked at architectural and urban precedents, both locally and abroad, to help affirm our design ideas, such as looking at Neville Mars's Asia backup research, Lacaton and Vassal, and more recent projects such as Nightingale Housing, and specifically NMBW's contribution to Melbourne University's new student precinct, respectively produced by many hands.
Our site sits in the centre of Daegu, northwest of the busy Panwaltang station. Within the site, 3 buildings were selected, an old apartment, 2 separate corner bank buildings, and an abandoned school. Operating in different scales and programs, these buildings were redeveloped through our shared approach, in an effort to reverse the current trajectory of Daegu towards a more livable city that can produce everything it consumes.
For the apartment building, the strategy was to extend living areas vertically and fill out remaining space for production and commercial use. Within this new space, there are 3 key design moves: the pooling of enclosed spaces, the pushing of outdoor spaces, and the extruding of atrium spaces. The result is the interlacing of production with public programs. This is how the strategy could be applied on a typical floor. From the stair core, we can pull out an enclosed space for a staff room, push in outdoor spaces to form a market, and pull out another enclosed room for a storage room. Finally, aeroponic towers can situate on the atrium spaces extruded. The buildings operating in 3 scales: atriums housing aeroponic towers for the agricultural consumption of the city, open spaces which collectively create a communal farmers market, and a residential tower which is separate but easily accessible to the public production hub. The result is an architectural arrangement of production scales that can adapt and grow with the city itself.
For the 2 corner bank buildings, it was about prioritizing and editing the structural integrity to join them. The process was to activate the ground floor experience, to plug it into the public realm, and to allow the current facade to sit as close against an insertion of a new, more effective and efficient system of space fulfillment. The resulting outcome allowed for a more modular system that could facilitate a constant variation of space requirements, with vertical and horizontal wall operations to open and close off space, depending on its square metre needs. From the ground floor upwards, it takes into account the necessary public and private demands, and outputs a multifaceted textile production, distribution and consumption hub, with living and leisure spaces incorporated. To ensure it can work across scale and time, it embraces the simplicity of the grid to frame and stabilise growth or decline of its internal function. For example, if textile demand in Daegu were to rapidly increase, it could be upgraded quickly and adequately to supply the city.
The ample open space and modular arrangement of the abandoned school brings forth an expanse of opportunities in both form and program. The school is veiled in a new pragmatic form influenced by its need for growth and sustainability. This will serve as a foundation for its new purpose as a hub for electronics. The additional building spaces have been fitted to allow an enclosed cycle of production, distribution, and living to coexist, becoming mostly self-sufficient in its operation. Accompanying this, many of its surfaces are angled in a way to maximize the collection of water and electricity through their respective networks. If further space is required, specific elements may be extended outwards, providing a means of growth both inside and out. The section illustrates the layers of programs stacking upon one another. Its specific arrangement was influenced by electronic centers found throughout Korea, looking at their levels of authority and systemization as precedents. Specific interior spaces are intentionally left vacant to retain and develop a street-side architecture. Here, the spaces are filled with a Korean-style marketplace. The adaptable core brings forth an idea of a structure which iterates upon itself, allowing for programs and production systems to attach, suiting the needs of the current generation.
Whilst the three resolved buildings are authored by different hands, when viewed collectively you can begin to imagine a community of production-embedded buildings, producing the consumption and living needs of its community and city. The result is a city of communities containing all of its necessary production and buildings containing a variety of public and private programs. As design needs change, so do the buildings, ultimately changing the whole city itself. This emerges amongst a growing trend of precinct-scale design collaboration in the profession, and it's clear the benefit of resolution across scales, which celebrates architectural nuances. The project at its core aims to redesign the cycle in which we design buildings. We need to work with what we have, build stable foundations for the future, and be nimble in how we deal with our volatile and trend-oriented economy. As architects, we must take responsibility for the harm we're making in creating entirely new buildings and the embodied carbon associated, which is why we're aimed to create a model for an architectural circular economy.